Euromaxx highlights. In today's show, Red Wine Rally, the race for the first Beaujolais Nouveau. Defining Design, a major London show, features Dieter Rahm's iconic work. Country Collection, fashion-conscious city dwellers return to the basics. Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Robin Merrill.
And a very warm welcome from Berlin. Wolfgang Joop is one of this country's most successful fashion designers, and he turned 65 this week. He actually sold his fashion label Joop at the end of the 1990s, left New York, where he was living at the time, and bought a villa just outside Berlin in his hometown of Potsdam. But he didn't rest on his laurels. In fact, he's still as busy as ever.
Wolfgang Joop is one of Germany's most famous fashion designers and himself a famous face. He's been in the business for decades. Joop's life and work have now been chronicled in a new illustrated biography, which he launched at the Frankfurt Book Fair in October. He's used to the attention, still the excitement remains.
I've been in the limelight my whole life. When I come here, it's as if I just escaped execution. I feel more reprieved than rewarded. A lot of people would think I've had such a richly rewarding life. But I always feel I have been reprieved.
Together with his mother, Wolfgang Joop spent the post-war years on a farm in Potsdam. It was an upbringing dominated by women. When he was 8, he was taken to Braunschweig in West Germany by the father he had never met before. The boy clearly had promising skills as an artist. He reluctantly went to university, but later dropped out in order to focus on art. In 1970, he married Karen Benatzky, with whom he had 2 daughters before they divorced. Jette Joop is now also a fashion designer in her own right, while Florentina is an author of children's books.
The difference to Karl Lagerfeld and Jill Sander is that he always had a family as well. The other two were very much committed to their careers and refused to be distracted. Wolfgang is a real family man.
It was more by accident that Wolfgang Joop entered the fashion business. But his 1978 fur collection secured him the big breakthrough. A series of ladies' and men's lines followed in the 1970s and 80s, plus accessories, now bearing the world-famous Joop brand. He worked closely with supermodels like Nadia Auermann and Claudia Schiffer. In the late 90s, Wolfgang Joop sold most of his shares in his company and decided to embark on new ventures. He set up a brand new label called Wunderkind. It is based in the town he grew up in, Potsdam. And it is very close to the famous Sanssouci Palace grounds, formerly home to Prussian royalty.
I used to try and design beautiful products. And with Joop, I was working within a product world. When I design clothes today, I take the same approach that an artist does with a work of art.
The Wunderkind label has enabled Wolfgang Joop to spread his wings as a fashion artist. Author, artist and fashion designer in one, Wolfgang Joop's sketches and paintings have already been featured in solo shows. He also won acclaim for his debut novel, inspired by his personal experience of the fashion industry.
He's a very versatile yet vulnerable character. He's been through a lot in life and is ridiculously honest. Some people think he's terribly loud. Okay, he's an extrovert, but he's also incredibly reflective.
Joop's Wunderkind line has been grabbing the headlines this year. In Paris, he unveiled his Hurt and Heal collection, featuring surgical stockings on the catwalk. This collection is called Power and Poverty, a name that belies the price tags of up to €8,000.
For me personally, my aesthetic ideal was always something that didn't conform or pander. Things that are standardized or churned out en masse are not my style. That's where my artist's heart comes in.
Wolfgang Joop is in step with the zeitgeist, but remains faithful to his own artistic vision.
Now, the third Thursday in November every year is a very special date for wine lovers. This is when the cry goes out, Le Beaujolais Nouveau est arrivé, signalling the arrival of the first red wine of the year in the Beaujolais region of France. And for the last 37 years, there's been a race called the Beaujolais Run from Britain to France. This year, Euromaxx went along for the ride.
Brooklands Motor Racing Circuit near London, Tuesday, 7 a.m. 5 minutes before the start, 35 classic cars are ready to go. This year, Patrick Mangelsdorf and his friend Simone from Germany are taking part for the first time.
I have to say, we're pretty excited. We're really glad to be here. I think it's fairly exceptional to have a team from Germany here.
The Beaujolais Run is structured like a treasure hunt. The competitors have to find 5 hidden checkpoints and travel the shortest distance possible in doing so. Speed doesn't matter. It's all about having fun. And for a worthy cause, every participant has to donate at least £2,000, about €2,150, to charity.
The Beaujolais Run is typically English and several decades old. I found the idea of getting to know France with a group racing from Britain at this time of year fascinating, and that's why I immediately agreed to take part.
The first checkpoint is south of Reims, a windmill in Verzenay. The participants have to take snapshots to show they've reached it. The first Beaujolais Run took place in 1972 when Sunday Times journalist Alan Hall had the idea of a race to get to Beaujolais in France by midnight and bring back one of the first bottles of Beaujolais Nouveau.
The big thing about the Beaujolais Nouveau is it's the first wine of the year to be released. So it's the first red wine produced in the year, and it's released in the year that it's grown, which is very unusual.
One of the highlights of the Beaujolais Run is a drive on the old Formula One track in Dijon, where Niki Lauda and Gilles Villeneuve once raced. Wednesday evening, the competitors arrive in Mâcon in the Beaujolais wine-growing region. The last stage of the run is over. Here, the number of kilometres driven is added up to determine the winner. The drivers have covered about 1,100 kilometres on average. Not everything went well. Patrick Mangelsdorf's car broke down along the way.
We've arrived, that's the best thing. We've had fun, we've run 3 circuits on the racetrack, and everything's great.
Paul Volker's car remained unscathed, but he had a few problems of his own.
We've driven 500 kilometers today up and downhill, and this old car from 1965 has power steering, but nothing like what cars have nowadays. So we had to do a lot of work ourselves.
All 70 competitors reached Beaujolais. It's a few minutes before midnight when the first barrels of Beaujolais Nouveau will be tapped. The Beaujolais Run participants are enjoying their first taste of the new vintage.
I think it's wonderful, brilliant. I usually go to the Oktoberfest, but the excitement here is on another level.
The amateur racers have achieved their main aim of bringing back the Beaujolais. It doesn't really matter who actually won the event.
Staying in France, Karl Lagerfeld is a major icon of the fashion world, of course, but it seems he's quite influential in the music world too. His patronage of the French duo SALM drew a great deal of media hype, and now they've just brought out their first CD. Let's take a listen.
a gig of an unconventional kind. The band Something à la Mode, or SALM for short, are promoting their debut album live at a store in Paris. SALM is Yannick Grandjean on the cello and Thomas Roussel on the violin. The two musicians specialise in marrying different genres of music. They are great fans of classical composers like Richard Strauss and Maurice Ravel, but are also inspired by the innovative electronic sounds of their fellow Frenchmen from the band Daft Punk.
All the strings that you can hear are played live and then recorded by the computer, and we added all the tracks together to create a kind of orchestra.
Challenge, yeah. And also it's a challenge because there is a lot of risk. You know, when one shot is bad, it's bad the whole song.
Fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld was blown away by SALM and their potential. They were catapulted into the limelight this spring when he invited them to perform at his Chanel show in Venice. The musicians featured Lagerfeld's voice on the intro to the track Rondo Parisiano.
La mode et la musique, c'est identique. On peut créer sa petite musique de chambre soi-même.
He arrived at like it was 10 in the evening, and there was a crowd all around him, like you know, the Kaiser. I think you call him the Kaiser in Germany.
We asked him if he was okay to put his voice on the track of the défilé, and he said, "I don't really like my voice," but in fact he wanted to do it, and he had fun.
Yannick Grandjean and Thomas Roussel began playing music when they were children and both attended music school in Dijon.
Juste pour se remettre dans les doigts.
In addition to the classical input, the electronic sounds are also all original recordings. With 30 live performances, a track with Karl Lagerfeld and their debut album under their belt this year alone, SALM seem to be well on the road to success.
Now, since the fall of the Berlin Wall, this city has changed immensely and has become a magnet for young, creative people and tourists too. One of the major attractions is the vibrant club scene, and one of the most famous clubs is Cookies, which has just celebrated its 15th birthday. Cookies normally avoids media attention, but let us in to celebrate its anniversary.
Berlin on a Tuesday evening, and as usual, there's a line of people waiting to get into Cookies. Anyone who manages to get past the doorman has made it into one of the city's most exciting venues. It's only open on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Electronic techno music, I think Berlin is top-notch.
I think it's very innovative. The music's a bit different and the crowd's very mixed.
It's a lot different, you know, it's a very relaxed crowd, very casual, but the music's great and it's a great atmosphere, so you don't have to try too hard, but you get inside, it's great, it's really good.
The world's top DJs are all keen to get behind the turntables at Cookies. German DJs Sven Väth and Westbam, and even the Pet Shop Boys have all spun discs here. It's a club with a family atmosphere. Its owner, Cookie, still tends the bar himself now and then.
If a club's going to be a lasting success, then you need a personal touch. And because I'm really still here every Tuesday and Thursday when I'm in Berlin, it wouldn't be possible to take the club and relocate it.
It started out as an illegal club in the basement of Cookie's house, one of the numerous makeshift clubs to spring up in the former East Berlin's many vacant spaces. Back then, it was normal to only open 1 or 2 nights a week.
The same guests would always come on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They were friends, acquaintances, and friends of friends who heard about it and would drop by every week. If anyone came once, they always came back.
But these illegal clubs were always being evicted, and Cookies was no exception. It moved 6 times before settling up in a disused factory in 1999. By now, it had become world-renowned and famous for its strict door policy.
The problem with a club that's well known is that if you just let anyone in, no one would feel comfortable. That's just the way it is.
The club has continued to expand. In 2000, it moved into the service hall of a former bank and stayed there until 2 years ago, when it reopened in the spacious former cinema at the Westin Grand Hotel. Its motto, just for friends, is still the guiding principle.
Everyone who gets in at Cookies feels comfortable. They're here because they want to have a good time. What car you arrive in or whether you're on unemployment just doesn't matter.
But Cookies' friends aren't just into mindless partying. 2003 saw the introduction of the Yellow Lounge, a series of classical concerts. At Cookies, subculture meets high culture.
The idea behind Cookies is that there's no advertising. You have to know where it is and when it is, and it's become a legend by word of mouth. That's what's behind all the hype, and that's why everyone wants to be a part of it.
No one knows how much longer Cookies can survive. That's why every Tuesday and Thursday, revelers party as if it were the very last time.
The German industrial designer Dieter Rams is the man behind some of the most iconic products of the second half of the 20th century. Mostly for the consumer giant Braun, like the radiogram, which is now a collector's item. His work was all about simple elegance and making things easy to use. Right now, there's a retrospective of his work at the Design Museum in London.
These household appliances from the electronics firm Braun are up to 50 years old, but they still look amazingly modern. They were designed by Dieter Rams, one of Germany's most influential industrial designers. His timeless creations are now on display at London's Design Museum.
This idea that we call minimalism today, incorrectly in my view, was not my intention. One of our basic principles was to make the things easier to handle, less complicated, more comprehensible.
Clear, elegant lines, colourful knobs and handles over simple white with very little print. Rams got rid of the superfluous with great success. His designs are respected the world over. A trained architect, Rams joined the Braun company in the mid-1950s. Just a short while later, he was managing his own team.
It was a time in which we wanted to sweep out the old, redo and improve everything. That was our concern at the time.
His first design was an overnight success. A radiogram which Rams designed together with a colleague, Hans Gugelot.
At that time, I had this relatively new material, which at first was used mostly for window decorations. But I knew that you could mold it. We came up with the idea of a plexiglass lid. We had no way of knowing back then that that would still be on every piece of audio equipment today.
Whether it's an alarm clock or a heater, as Braun's chief designer, Rams was responsible for it. He helped the firm to develop an individual style and modernize its appearance. His quality products, made in Germany, are in demand the world over, right down to the humble electric shaver.
It shaves so gently at the neck, and yet so close, my customers love it.
Rams received many awards even as a young man.
Well, I think Dieter Rams is probably one of the most important industrial designers that we've seen. A number of the things that Dieter Rams has looked at in terms of design have been copied by many people ever since. I mean, even today you can see very huge amount of similarity in modern product and industrial design running through companies like Muji and Apple.
Dieter Rams has also designed furniture for Witzo. His open, flexible shelving system set international standards. At home, Dieter Rams also uses his own designs, from the coffee maker in the kitchen to the furniture in the living room. He designed it all himself.
If I were to start over again today, I don't think I'd want to become a designer. I've done enough. You know my motto, less is more. We need to decelerate things in every respect. I mean, we don't need so much. We just need to do things better.
Which is what Dieter Rams' designs are all about. He's a man who's always been ahead of his time.
Now, you wouldn't think that haute couture fashion shows in Paris would take as their inspiration clothes from the country, but that's exactly what Karl Lagerfeld did at the recent fashion weeks there. Now, country style is in, although he drew the line at his models wearing Wellington boots.
A playful pastoral style took the runway at Paris Fashion Week in October. For Chanel's 2010 spring-summer collection, Karl Lagerfeld sent his models down the catwalk in a barn inside the Grand Palais. The designer staged a show themed on country idyll instead of diva-like glamour. It's a trend that the Berlin fashion label Blutsgeschwister and others are following. And it requires a penchant for kitsch to embrace country-style embroidery, checkered patterns, and flower appliques. Holiday on the farm, a phrase that encapsulates the design motif of the Blutsgeschwister brand.
We draw on a longing, a cliché, not this kind of embarrassing rustic aesthetic, these village discos. People from the country don't really dress traditionally anymore, except in Upper Bavaria. We really draw on what people might remember about the country, which doesn't mirror that rustic aesthetic, but rather what you're really looking for, the tradition, the old values.
In the salon of Berlin stylist André Mertens, the hairstyle is tailored to the fashion trend. Braided styles are in. André Mertens recommends this dignified braided style for special occasions.
You can see how versatile the new look is, how many different ways it can work. It's quite adaptable. Of course, it has to fit the woman wearing it, but it really is very versatile.
Clothes inspired by the countryside are popping up in fashion magazines. Their pages are full of knitwear, lambskins, and models posing on the heath. Dutch trend researcher Lee Edelkoort says the fashion world has done a complete about-face.
Fashion is changing mentality, I guess. Finally nesting itself in the 21st century, coming to terms with too much glamour and too much gloss and too much people and too much red carpets, and suddenly you see a turnaround towards a real creative fashion, which is really about tailoring and cut and precise choice of material and color and embellishment.
This trend has led to something no one expected. The country lass is now at the height of fashion, with a little help from cosmopolitan types like Karl Lagerfeld.
And if you want to see any of those reports again or others from Euromaxx, go to YouTube and then just type in Deutsche Welle English. That's all for now, though. So from me and the rest of the team here in Berlin, thanks for watching and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.